It's my pleasure to invite you all for today's Dean Distinguished Speaker Series with one of the most famous people that I personally know, Mark Ciardi. Just to give you, I was talking to Mark once in an event. My wife came, who is that? He looks like a Hollywood actor. And I said, he is an Hollywood actor. Yes, you are.
There you go. Thank you.
He's one of the most prolific producers of very inspiring stories. If you look at all his movies, I've seen most of them. Before I knew Ciardi, Mark Ciardi, I've seen that. They are very uplifting. The most recent one, I'm going to put a plug to everybody to watch, The Senior. I think you should all watch that movie. It'll be on Netflix, you said?
We hope pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie. It was premiered here on the campus. It's a fascinating movie. So what a remarkable career, 12 years with first look deal with Walt Disney Studios. He was brought to life beloved movies such as The Rookie we just saw, Miracle, Invincible, The Game Plan, The Secretariat. $1 Million Army is my favorite. Can anybody guess why? Yes. It was shot in India. And McFarland USA, through his company Select Films, he has continued telling powerful real-life stories with projects like The Miracle Season, Safety, American Underdog. Anybody has seen that? Mark? Kurt Warner?
Yeah.
Nobody? Oh, come on, you don't have to feel shy. It's a great one. And most recently, A Million Miles Away. Beyond scripted films, Mark has also made a significant impact in documentary storytelling, producing acclaimed projects for Netflix, ESPN, and Peacock, including the Emmy Award-winning Big Shot. Before his success in Hollywood, Mark actually was a baseball player, played for Milwaukee Brewers. Before that, he was a baseball player for University of Maryland. And while he was there, he did even something bigger. He was a graduate of the marketing program from the business school. We're very proud of that. You're also very proud.
My parents.
Yeah. He graduated in 1983.
Yep.
Yes. Today, he remains deeply committed to his alma mater. And I would say that he has probably not missed any of the events. Most events you come.
I do.
He lives in Los Angeles, but every time he comes, there'll be a text from me. He's one of the few ones who calls me Prab. Those are the people who are closest to me actually call me Prab.
Okay.
They don't say a full name. So always there's a text that you say, can we go for coffee? And every time we have met.
Yeah.
This is the first time you didn't text me.
Yeah.
But we know you're going to meet, right? So please join me in welcoming Mark Ciardi. And something more remarkable about Mark is that he's one of the easiest to work with, to talk to, and so friendly. And you know, it's the fame and being that generally don't go very well. But thank you for being that wonderful human being, friendly.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, always I start this speaker series just with questions because most of them are students. Love to hear back your journey from being a student, an athlete student, to where you are. Did you plan this? Is that happen accidentally, or how did that journey take you here?
Yeah, the film business was kind of a bit of a happy accident, I'd say. You know, like the film. By the way, that was I did the commencement address in 2017, and it was a kind of, they surprised me with that intro. So when I was coming here, I said, you know, see if you can dig that up because it's kind of better. It gives a little bit of a context. But yeah, I graduated in '83, played baseball here, was lucky enough to get drafted with the Brewers. I was a 15th round choice. I had to redshirt my junior year. I didn't know if I could pitch again. I blew out my ankle and had ankle reconstructive surgery. So kind of thought I lost my opportunity to fulfill a dream, and then came back my senior year instead of getting, you know, drafted my junior year, and had a pretty good year, got picked in the 15th round, and I was the last guy on the bench, the very last guy, and had to work my way up. I thought I would be done after 2 weeks. I remember getting kind of admonished in a team meeting of like after a bad outing, and thought, well, like at least I tried it, but worked my way up, got a spot start, and what I kind of said in the commencement address, got this spot start because a guy got hurt named Jim Morris, and I took this one, you know, start, and I threw a shutout, and I was always a starting pitcher, and I worked my way all the way up to the big leagues. that guy, Jim Morris, never got above A ball. We had roomed together one year and then lost touch for 11 years. And that was my entry into the film business, because that same guy ended up, I saw a story in the Sports Illustrated, and it was telling the story about this guy. And I didn't even look at the name, but the name was Jim Morris. And he had this incredible story, and he was in AAA at the time. He then got called up to the big leagues. Well, I was working out of a garage at that time, ended up getting the rights to tell his story and make that movie. And that was my first movie, called The Rookie, with Dennis Quaid. And it was all because of a story I saw and a guy I played with, and ended up getting the rights in a really competitive situation. So, it's like a sliding doors thing. You never know where opportunity is going to come from. But when you put yourself in that position, I guess, and I was always an underdog. I was like just last guy on the bench there, and kind of always took that attitude and that mindset of loving underdog stories and always gravitating toward them. So, yeah.
But producing movies is a creative work, right? I can go work for a company, I work for somebody, but this is creative work. But were you always creative in thinking about?
No, zero. If someone told me I was going to be in the film business, I would have laughed. I remember dating a girl that wanted to be an actress when I was in high school. Scott knows. My brother's here, Scott. Lori Shep. And I was just like, I was an athlete, and she would just always talk about movies and want to be in movies. And just to think then, some of the phone calls I had glazing over when she would talk about the film business and being in that business myself, former athlete. It wasn't, it would have been one of the last things I would have thought about. But, I talking about being an entrepreneurial, I had saved some money. So when I wanted to move back to LA, because I lived there when I was playing baseball in the off season from 85 to 89. And then, did some other things for 10 years, Brent, right? Don't talk. But so then when I wanted to move back to LA, this was in like 1998, I had saved enough money to try something, and I was going to do something entrepreneurial, and decided to come out to LA. I had some friends that were in the film business, and they were just social friends. I didn't know anything about the film business. I just wanted to move back out to California. So I'm like, and there was another graduate that was Scott's roommate in college, a guy named Bradley Thomas, who came and was at Maryland. And I helped him when he moved out there to get a job in the film business, because I knew some people. He then found great success with the Farrelly brothers, right? All those movies, Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, Something About Mary. He ended up running their company. And I literally looked at him. I don't think he ever graduated from here. I wouldn't call him a scholar. But I said, if he can do it, I can do it. And that was a big impetus of like, yeah, why not? And tried it, worked in a garage for a couple of years. And The Rookie was the movie that kind of propelled my career and then put me on the path of sports films, because I didn't think I would even do sports films. It was just like we'd kind of set up a couple other projects that were non-sports, and Rookie led to Miracle, led to Invincible, and so still do a lot of sports content, a lot of inspirational stories, and a lot of documentaries now that have been fun to do. And it's just, you got to look for opportunity, and if you're passionate about, I found my passion in the film business. I felt like such an imposter in the beginning, and didn't know anything about the business. It was all self-taught, but started to fall in love with it. And I think when that happens, then you're gonna, especially you find a niche of what you love, and if you love something, then it's easier to sell.
The good thing you say, we all, including me, we have this imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And sometimes it pulls you out. You think you're not supposed to be there. But thank you for mentioning that it's okay to have imposter syndrome. And you're looking for opportunities that come, you grab it.
Yeah.
But still, how do you identify something is going to be successful? And I know about Bollywood.
Yeah.
Bollywood produces more movie than Hollywood.
Yeah.
Most of them fail. Most of them don't make money. So how do you identify something that is really going to be successful?
I think over the years, you know what you think you can sell, and the business changes, right? Tastes change, what people are looking for. You always have to be a little bit ahead, or think, at this point, 25 years into the business, I've kind of have a shorthand of what I think I can sell. It's got to start with me loving it, though. An interesting kind of recent story happened a couple months ago, where I woke up to this story in The Athletic, and it was a story about this little team in England. There's a pyramid system there. There's a Premier League, which everybody knows is Chelsea and all these big teams, Tottenham. Well, they have a tournament every year called the FA Cup. And the FA Cup is something where the smallest team can end up playing the biggest team. And you have a round robin. You got to work your way out of the lower ranks. But this little team in Macclesfield in the 6th tier beat Crystal Palace, who were the cup holders. And it was the biggest upset in soccer history. So I read that and I was like, I got to get this story. So I had my assistant, like, you know, I have a deck that I send with all my films. So it's a little bit cheating, you know, but I had him send it and just keep calling until you get in touch with someone, and finally got back and had a Zoom like 2 or 3 days later, met the owner of the team, and got kind of a fast friendship and he basically said, okay, you're going to do it. So went to London, went to their next game, they almost won again, and so much press around the story. But you know, something that really interests me right now, and we're in the middle of pitching it to different studios, and it's fun process. Nothing's a guarantee because everything's very difficult, you know, in Hollywood to sell a story, to get it, you know, studios to pay for development. But you know, it starts with believing in something. And you know, to me, it was like, man, I always love underdog stories, and to me, it was the best one since Miracle. So smaller movie, but you know, my wife is from London, so she's wanted to go back, and hopefully, I've always wanted to make a movie there, so hopefully that'll result in the movie. But that's kind of, I got to get inspired and excited about something, because I think I can then get other people excited.
So we were chatting before this. By the way, I have questions. I'm going to just put it down. A lot of students have questions. I'm going to give you more time to ask questions, because a lot of your questions were really good. So you come and ask that question than me asking that. Your son went to Smith School, by the way. So your entire family somehow,
Yeah.
even when they're in California, the son came here.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Luke.
So my oldest sister, Cindy, was a business major. My sister, Kim, went to Maryland as well. She was not in the business school. I then was a marketing major. Scott was a finance major. So we had 4 kids come here.
Yeah.
We grew up in New Jersey, and I moved to LA. My son, you know, was born in 2003, and when we started looking for schools, he just wanted to come to Maryland. It was like, wait, do you want to look at any other schools? He said, no, I want to come here. I'm like, okay. So he ended up, you know, getting in and thriving here. He was a finance major. He actually graduated early, and he's starting his career at Citigroup in investment banking in July. So he should have been here, but he graduated early, and he will be back in May. So,
but we talked about the whole notion of your net worth is your network.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that notion of why it's so important for students?
Yeah.
To build the network, make the connection.
Yeah. I realized when I was in the film business and starting that you know, I had some friends that were more in the medium to senior level and getting up, but like I knew that I had to meet assistants and really young executives, because I was starting out as well. So building those guys are all senior people, so, and girls, and it's you have to do it, and that's what Luke's doing right now, is like, you know, working on different things, meeting people, and the best single thing you can do is network and keep in touch with people, be really good about it, because people are always willing to help, especially students, and you know, especially alums too, that you can say, hey, would you mind having a coffee? Can I ask you a couple questions? And then those people can end up helping, because everybody would like to help, you know, especially successful students and kids entering into, you know, it's kind of pay it forward. But getting that network at an early age is critical.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the key characteristics of student that you learned when you're here, or you didn't learn here, but you want to tell the students you need to have these kinds of skills in order to be successful?
I think with this, you always hear the word entrepreneurial, and that's somehow associated with University of Maryland. It's been in our slogan. It's being, you know, gritty and tough, and you know, Kevin Plank talked about it a lot. And I don't know, that spirit of being really tough and entrepreneurial, I think really benefits you. And I think the school certainly provided me, my brother, my sister, with the tools we needed to go out there and the other word is like fearless, right? Be fearless. That's again another word that's talked about a lot associated with the school. So you just go through doors, be uncomfortable, you know, take chances, you know, be smart about your chances that you might take, but you know, work hard and good things will come. I mean, the school's certainly from when we were here, it's an incredibly highly ranked school and different than it was when we were here, which was kind of almost more of a commuter school. and now it's this completely different university. So
Yeah.
very proud.
Very
I
hard to
probably
get
wouldn't
it.
have gotten in, you know, so.
Yeah. But that, thank you for saying that. But a lot of people, when they say fearless, people can't make sense. What does that mean, right? Fearless. From my perspective, is you don't fear to fail because there's never a straight path. So can you explain from your life, how have you seen lots of failures and what is that path? It's never been a straight up, maybe.
My business is all about rejection and failures and hearing the word no. It's 95% of the time.
Wow.
So it's, you know, you're always getting bad news or a rejection, but then you got to look at the next spot, next door, and keep working on things, because there's been projects I've had that, you know, 15 years later, I've made the movie. The Senior was one of them.
Oh, okay.
You know, I got that story in 07 and got a script done 2 years later. And it was like, I always knew I had that script to be able to pull out and find out the right moment, the right timing to find that right studio or investor. So it's currency. So really, for me, developing screenplays is the currency, and having those great stories that you might have the rights to. So yeah.
Well, the Senior took 15 years, but it's, I don't know, others have seen. How did you find that? You shared that in that.
Yeah, and that one, it was a story in the LA Times, and I was sitting at my desk, and at that point, I had made 3 movies and had just finished Invincible, and again looking for, you know, that was about a 35-year-old guy that, you know, came off the streets and played, and this was a 59-year-old guy, came back to his alma mater because he had another year of eligibility, and made the team as a middle linebacker, and I was like, oh God, this is like the Rookie and Invincible supercharged.
Yeah.
So, but it was a small story, and it was like Division III football, and really a smaller, more personal story. But I don't know. Again, I looked at that and I'm like, I got on a plane and went and got the rights. So you got to kind of put yourself out there, especially in my business. You're always competing. You're competing with other producers. You're competing with people that might also see that story. And then once I get the story, now you're, you know, trying to get it set up and find a partner and get it ultimately made. And it's, you know, one of the hardest things you can do is to, you know, start from scratch and then have a movie that people see and enjoy and love. And it's, you know, really satisfying, because when it's difficult, it's more satisfying. So
yeah, when you actually shared that clipping of LA Times article, that you actually read it and thought we can actually build a story out of it.
Yeah.
It's a small story in the newspaper.
Yeah.
How do you think? I can't think that way.
Yeah, you have to look ahead. You know, you have to, again, starts with yourself being inspired by it. And then you got to see structurally, does it work? Is there a beginning, middle, and end? You know, so not all stories, you know, have that, nor, I mean, there's great stories out there, but they don't have that struggle, right? It's all about every time you pitch a movie, an executive go, hey, what's the conflict? What's the conflict? What's the conflict? Conflict is just something to overcome. And if you don't have anything to overcome, there's no reason to tell that story, right? It's, you can't start up here. You have to start here to get there. And there's always going to be bumps along the way, and simple story structures. You know, you're inciting incident. You know, you figure something out. I want to go back and play football. You struggle, you struggle, you struggle. Things start to go well, and then, you know, something happens at the end of the second act, about 25 minutes before the movie ends, and then you got to get over that thing. And that's structure for every movie if you know, follow it for the most part. So you got to figure that out, you know, for my business, and figure out what a story is.
I think it applies to most real life, not just movies, in our own life.
Yeah.
You fall and you get up and you're persistent. And I think all students have to realize it's never a straight path for success. Never.
And things lead to other things, you know, especially with, you know, having your network, because it might not be that person that's going to result in something, but it could lead you to somewhere else. And, you know, even different projects that I've had that haven't gone, I might meet a writer that then another thing happens. And then, you know, now things come into me, the phone rings, especially if it's sports, because I'm like the sports guy. But, you know, I've got to decide what I think could end up being a movie. But yeah, and documentaries, been doing a lot of those lately, where they're like little mini movies that maybe might take a year from start to finish. So it's a quick movies take years and years and years and years. So yeah, it's a very slow process.
No, thank you for sharing. I would like the students you sent so many questions. Please, you can come to those 2 mics here to come and ask. And please do ask challenging questions. It's okay. While you are going to line up, I might ask more questions. If anybody wants to take on the question.
Come on.
Oh,
Must have
oh,
one
he's going out?
question.
I asked you to ask question.
By the way, when you have a screening for a movie,
Yeah.
that's one of the most terrifying things when you have a finished cut or almost finished and you test it. So you have an audience like this and they don't know anything about the movie, and then the moderator comes up and said, "This movie's almost finished. You might," and then they watch it, and then you have a questionnaire a bunch of questions you have to fill out, and it's like the waiting after a movie. You might think it might be playing well, but and I've become really good friends with the guy that has the big company that moderates. He's done like 15 of my movies, but you sit there and you wait, and it's terrifying, and you just hear your score, and it's pretty much what that movie is going to do or the success of it. It's so that's a little
Okay.
bit of this.
Could introduce yourself and
Hello, I'm Mateo. I'm a junior here. I'm a big movie fan, so I just wanted to ask you, is there like one story, one movie that kind of resonates with you personally? You're a big inspiration guy, so maybe like when you're down, you think about this movie.
Man, a lot of them have similar themes in different packages. For me, the Rookie still, my first two movies, The Rookie and Miracle, probably still stand out as the ones that I remember most. The Rookie, because it was baseball, as a guy I played with, and it was my first movie. Just it was like, and it was such a great, challenges throughout it. All as a producer, all you deal with are problems, and you try to solve them, and then equip your director, and you're just that's all you deal with. But then you get over those little things, and just keep every day it's something different, and you just keep making it. And when you see that finished product, and you see it maybe test in that first, that's the funnest thing, is to watch that first test movie. If it does well and you get a big score, you're like, oh my God, all that work,
yeah.
and you can see an audience respond to it. And but yeah, they're probably those two movies. I loved American Underdog. I know you brought that up. It's about Kurt Warner. It came out in the second wave of COVID, so it was really difficult, and then ended up on I think it's on Hulu, and I hoped
Netflix, I thought
it almost went to Disney Plus, but because that's where all my films are, and they get viewed quite heavily still. So, but yeah, just
Any films that you haven't had anything to do with, like Rocky, for example?
my favorite sports movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Rocky's
Nice.
my favorite. Yeah, I get inspired by films all the time, so
Cool.
that and The Godfather. That's the
Oh,
other
I just watched
poster.
that.
It's my favorite non-sports film.
Can you check if it is on?
Hello? I think so.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just
It's on. Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
My name is Sophia. I'm a first year MBA, and you studied marketing. I know you mentioned that. What is something that you learned at Smith that you still use in your life, even though you took a very different path to your cohort? And what's something that you learned outside of Smith that you wish all of us knew?
Yeah, I mean, with Smith, I'm a marketing major. I didn't go to traditional sales, but all I do is sell. It's all I do every day, whether I'm, talking to a studio. A lot of it is, to put something in development. So I'm always talking and trying to sell things. So that came in handy in a bit of a non-traditional way, because I remember a lot of my courses, and so yeah, to put it to use, 100% I'm in sales. It's just they result in a movie or a documentary or whatever. But it's I think dealing with failure and things not happening are probably the best lesson to learn. And whether it was baseball for me or any, you deal with things all the time in life, and you got to turn a disappointment into a positive, and I think, and make it your strength. And scar tissue, they're all good. I mean, great wines struggle,
Yep.
and that struggle is good. So yeah, and outside just in life, it's the same thing. You're always dealing with things, and I mean, we had the fires come through in California, and that was something we dealt with twice there. And yeah, you think about all that, you think about a lot of things and how you can prepare yourself, and can't ever prepare yourself for something like that. So yeah, it's just everything in life.
So, Mark, can you
Thank you.
expand on what does that sales mean? Because a lot of them think sales is not a great job to have, but everybody is, including I'm a salesman.
Yeah.
I sell my school, I sell program. That's what I do all the time. What is that characteristic of being a good salesperson?
Believe in what you're selling, and uh, I think dealing with people in a way that you get to know them, and you get to know what they like. Because by the way, they've got to sell it then to their bosses, right? Because they've got to, and then they got to sell it to distributors, and they've got to. So we're all selling in a way to get that end product of a movie. So everyone's got to do it, and I think you got to have a good relationship. What I try to do in the beginning, because I know I was handicapped starting when I was 37 in a business that I knew nothing about. I really wanted to be kind to everyone, and to this day, there's really no one that has a bad word about me. I try to be nice to the lowest people because I was starting at the same place, assistants, young executives, anybody trying to do it. I would always take phone call. It was just be nice to people. It sounds like a small thing, but people remember they'd rather be down the road with someone that they like than someone that they don't like. I mean, that's pretty simple, right? And with a movie, it's like, I've had good experience, mostly good experience with directors, but you can have some challenging ones. And they're like 2 years, you're stuck with that person. So it can be a bad experience or a good experience. You try to just like check out people because, man, you get calls. I get calls about people I've worked with, and you got to be honest. And people check me out. And, what I love to hear most is like people say, you know what, I talked to a lot of people who knew you, and like they all had nice things to say. I mean, for me, that's the greatest compliment you can have. It might not result in what you're trying to do, but it's like eventually people will want to help you. And I think it's kind of karma as well. And, just better things will happen if you're kind to people and nice to people and give them the time of day. And
we had to reinforce being kind is in today's age, even more important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm also a first-year MBA. A lot of our courses are focusing on how AI is changing the business world. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about the use of AI in film. Some of it's kind of heated conversation at times. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on how that's changing your industry.
Yeah. I mean, you read about, was it Sora? Is that the thing that Disney put in? They might have lost $1 billion there, but it's really early and it's crazy. I mean, for me, what I can do and the applications for AI have been great. They help with decks, they help with write-ups, editing, that kind of thing. I mean, the big scary thing is likeness, right? It's taking an actor, and what they can do now is you can take Robert De Niro at any age and probably in a few years have them say anything. So now you're probably going to be selling your likeness, well after these people are gone. But really, I think the writing part of it is the big one that scares people. Can AI write a script? I don't think that will ever happen to a level of any really great script or movie that you might want. Where I think it'll help is certainly with visual effects and the cost, bringing cost down of things. It might displace some people that are artists that are doing, renderings and visual effects. But for the most part, I think it's going to help bring costs down. Matt and Ben just sold something to, I think, Netflix because they were having an overall deal. The people are trying to still figure out the applications of it. But I think at the end of the day, it's, there's always going to be scary applications of AI. I mean, you can see how fast this stuff's coming and what it can do and make you like this person. It seems like they say it. So that's always scary. But I think the applications are going to be really positive for the most part.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, he came earlier, and then we'll go here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Quinn. I'm here with the sports management program.
There we go.
Oh,
Yep.
All right.
So I wanted to ask, it seems as though you've chose two of the hardest industries to work in, with the sports industry and now the film industry. So I wanted to ask, how has your experience in the sports industry prepared you for working in a different industry like the film industry?
No, it's a good question. I mean, I tried to talk a little bit at the beginning of my baseball career and, reaching a dream, but then you get there and you're like, oh shit, I'm the last guy. I gotta climb over all these guys. I might not get the opportunity. So I think for that, preparing yourself in that way of just the odds stacked against you. And if you can succeed with that, and it just gives you kind of this kind of invincible feeling like, oh, I'm not scared about anything. Like I knew it was going to be a challenge being in the film business, but I'm like, shit, I'm pitching in front of 40,000 people, not always well, but I got up there that, probably climbed the biggest, toughest mountain, especially with baseball, because you got to go up like 5, 6 levels. Once I did that, I felt like I could do a lot of different things. I didn't have the fear of failing, because I already knew that, hey, I'm on, you know, no one has anything invested in me. There's nothing to lose. And, you know, always think of yourself as an underdog. I said that in my commencement address because I remember thinking about what I was going to say back then in the speech. And it just was like, well, I do underdog stories. I've always kind of felt myself as an underdog. It's kind of a good outlook to have when you're young, you know, because you're going to have to always kind of overcome things, and nothing's going to be given to you. So you're always going to feel like, oh, how am I going to get this job? I'm interviewing. There's 100 people. It's only 2 people getting the job, but somebody's got to get it. Why not you? And I always took that mind from, you know, that state of mind from baseball, and applied it to business.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You go here. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Kayla. I'm a finance major right now. But I was just deeply inspired by all types of underdog stories. Was a student athlete here too.
Yeah.
Currently, I run track and field here. I actually transferred here, but that's another story. But I always felt like I was the underdog too. I had a season-ending injury my senior year of high school, blew out my knee, had a complete reconstructive knee surgery, and then I came back, was able to compete collegiately, to, you know, a limit. But unfortunately last semester I took I medically retired.
Yeah.
Which was super tough. But I was just listening to that one story that you were saying about LA Times or
Studio.
yes. And I'm actually trying to come back for my fifth
Sport
year.
do you play?
I run
Okay. Oh, track. Yeah.
track,
Okay.
field, cross country, the whole thing,
Yeah.
whole bit. But I kind of was really inspired by that story too, that you were just saying, how he was kind of coming back for that additional year of eligibility.
Yeah.
But I was more wondering, like, how do you find these stories? Because you were saying you were an underdog yourself.
Yeah.
I feel like a ton of athletes out there kind of go through similar things. So I was just kind of wondering, how do you find that one and
Yeah.
know that one's going to
I mean,
hit?
I look everywhere. I try to read, you know, a lot of times there are articles, especially things that might happen, you know, like the rookie. You know, I had lost touch with Jim Morris, but had I not read that article, I probably wouldn't have gotten that story. So I'm always like looking, and you know, I just kind of have a sense now of what these stories are. But yeah, I mean, when I hurt my ankle, I didn't think I'd be ever playing again. So, you know, you kind of feel like you're on borrowed time on, you know, hey, if this doesn't work out, but even if it doesn't work out, you've kind of, that mindset of trying to overcome something is a good thing to have and carry with you, you know, because it's hard. I mean, not many D1 athletes, you know, it's really hard to even get where you've gotten. So yeah, just always have that spirit, I would say, and take it to whatever you do next, whether it's trying to get back in track or doing something else. You're going to have that. That's what's good about athletes. You know, a lot of places like to hire athletes because they have that mindset, you know,
Yeah,
there's
for
no
sure.
fear, and they just get it done and take that with you. You have an advantage.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yep.
So he'll go and then you can go this way. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Hello. Sorry. My name is Anthony Serace. I am a sophomore undergrad, currently majoring in finance and information systems. But right now, I am trying to enter a major that's sort of like a niche, and it's like completely different than finance. I'm very interested in nutrition, and I'm currently trying to market a product. I just want to know any advice you got from switching to a completely different niche from one like opposite aspect to another,
Yep.
and also what I can use from what I gained from my finance and information systems.
That's what I was going to
classes.
say. You could probably always use that finance mindset, even if you change majors. And what's Jason Cohen? He's in
Jason,
food.
yeah.
I was going to say there's grads here that are doing it. I mean, that's not my world, but this school has people in every field, you know? So there's a guy, Jason Cohen, who's very successful.
Yeah.
No, yeah, of course. I'm more concerned more so on the sales part because I do want to keep my finance and information system major.
Yeah.
I'm just right now currently trying to make like a side project or a business where I'm trying to market the product. Like, how would you recommend I take what I learned from this and I applied it to my passion project?
Might be a question for Prab.
I'm a dean, not entrepreneur, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would just say if you believe in something, go for it. I don't know how you would combine that right now, especially with a major, but could you double major? Could you stick,
Yeah.
that would be my gig,
We'll get you help on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's good though. That's
Appreciate
good to
your
have
insight.
ambition like that. I mean, talk about somebody that changed careers. Believe me, it's like,
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, I appreciate your insight. Thanks so much.
thank
sir.
you.
The first part of success is that you have you don't have the fear to come and ask that question in front of 200 people. Seriously, a lot of people hesitate to bring up those issues. So you'll do fine.
All right. Thank you so much.
Persistence.
Thanks.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Leah. I'm also in the sports management program. And my question's a little different. I was more wondering, like, how do you strike a balance when you're deciding what sports projects to do and what sports movies and stories you want to, like, pursue? Like, how do you strike a balance between, like, financial metrics and what you think is going to be successful that way versus also, like, what you personally think is, like, an interesting story? Like,
Yeah.
like how do you get, like, the emotional side versus the numbers side?
You have to combine them, you have to, listen, hockey's tougher than football, right? If you're looking at kind of genres or sports. So that said, I'm trying to get the rights to the current hockey story, the gold medal that just was won. So I've been talking to Billy Guerin, who was the GM of the U.S. team. So I feel like that's a movie, even though it doesn't, not the same underdog story as beating the Russians. It's a pretty great story. And so I've got to kind of have a sense, and then I can kind of talk to some executives of, hey, what do you think about this? And so right now, after all these years, I kind of have an idea of what kind of works. I'm doing and it doesn't have to be a true story or even really inspirational. I'm doing hopefully a movie in Italy this year, this fall, from a John Grisham book called Playing for Pizza. It was a book I loved when I read it in 2012. It was always under option. Every year, a couple times a year, I would call the book agent for Grisham, and he'd go, that's still under option. And one day he was like, this is probably in 2019, he's like, we're just figuring out if we're going to, extend the option. And I'm like, let me try to get this done. So I ended up setting it up. It's at Skydance, a few years later. And hopefully we're going out to cast now. So hopefully that'll result in a movie. But it's a kind of a romantic comedy in the sports world for an NFL player that has to go to the Italian Football League to play football and play on like a club team. So it was a book he wrote that I fell in love with and got. So, but NFL is always the strongest brand. And baseball I love, but that's more challenging. Basketball I haven't really done. I've always been trying to find something in that world. But yeah, it's underdog stories. It just happens that sports is a great canvas for a lot of these underdog stories. I just did a movie called A Million Miles Away that came out about an astronaut that Michael Pena played in. Not sports at all, but it felt like a sports movie, because you have to overcome what he overcomes is the same as, instead of getting on a playing field and maybe getting one batter to pitch to or one play he goes up to space. But it was the same huge underdog story. So, but yeah, sports is just kind of a great canvas.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I will give you some wonderful with cricket. I was going there to cricket. There are two stories that you see them. I think they are perfect. That'll be viewed by more people than all your movies combined because it's India. It's 1.4 billion.
Stories. I know.
That story is incredible.
He does this, but it's true. It's huge ratings for
Huge.
especially IPL.
Yeah.
But,
so now they've already reached third most valuation in sports.
yeah.
So they're inching towards second.
Yep.
This is unbelievable. Anyway, I think next was.
Me. That's what he does.
Yeah, I've been telling you about cricket. We need to go to India, and that'll be a great story. How about her? And then go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ivana. I'm a junior. I'm a public policy major, and I'm also part of the sports management program. As an underdog, I'm very interested in your story, so thank you for being here. As somebody who grew up as an underdog, what would you say you want businesses or, film producers or people like that, studios, to know about representation and opportunity for those underdogs?
I tell you, it's gotten a lot better where stories that had like A Million Miles Away, they just, oh no, they can't sell. But it takes someone like Ryan Coogler to do a movie where it's like, oh, story with African Americans can sell, or a story about a Mexican American. That's another underserved community because they have huge, movie going numbers. It's just about giving people what they want, and it'll cross over if it's a good movie. So yeah, it's gotten a lot better because it was really bad before. It was just like, no, this movie's not going to travel. That was always the thing. Oh, it won't travel, limited audience, and unless it's Denzel, you can't have a movie. And then that got blown up. So yeah, I think it's gotten a lot better. But here's the thing too. It's if you're a filmmaker, find a story that you're passionate about. Because if it's a really great story, you can always find a home for it. And but everything's a challenge now. I mean, it's no difference whether it's a story about diversity or a story, in the mainstream. It's just right now there's been this contraction in the film business. You see Paramount's buying Warner Brothers. They're not going to have the same amount of movies. There's just this tightening, and everyone was chasing Netflix for years and starting these platforms. So like 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was like crazy, and now everyone's making less. They're like, Netflix, you won. So, and Netflix is making less. So you have this kind of shrinking of the amount of movies, but you still have all these movies trying to get through this funnel. So, for me, you feel like, it's just tougher getting a yes. It's like, what's the IP? What's the audience? Who's your director? Where you never used to be that kind of critical. So you just got to figure out, what's going to get made, So
Thank you.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm with the sports management program. You kind of stole my thunder a little bit because I was going to ask you about playing for pizza.
Oh, okay.
You chased that for about 9 years.
I did.
Yeah. How do you handle having to wait that long about a story you're passionate about, and how do you know if they're going to extend it, or how does that process go?
You got to be persistent and you got to be patient, but you also have to be impatient because you got to constantly push. But it's like pushing a rock up a hill. For that one, I just always loved it, and I just kept checking in and kept checking in and kept checking in. And he started laughing at times, and he's like, "No, still it's another 2 years. How long's left?" And then it was like this little crack in the door. I'm like, "Let me run with it," and set it up. And so it was again a movie or book that I read that I loved, and I was like, "Man, this feels like it could be a movie." So
yeah, is that up to John Grisham as far as giving you the rights, or how does that
ultimately Grisham, but his book agent is really works on his business side. But yeah, he talks with John. So they looked at my resume and just my passion for it, and this guy's been calling every year for so yeah. That's sometimes what it takes. You don't want to be a pain in the ass, but you just want to be. And I would talk to him about other stuff, and just got kind of like this strange business friendship with David Gernert, his name was. You just look up people and call them, and you got to get a call back. And now because of the movies I've done, I can always get a call back. It might not result in something. Like right now, I cold called the agent for Usain Bolt. You guys know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Greatest, guy ever. I've done a couple IOC stories, including the Miracle Boys of 80 documentary that came out a couple months ago. But I'm always looking for Olympic stories because we have this relationship with the IOC. And I just was like, I want to do like Usain Bolt, but it was that project was under. It started as getting the movie rights, and then I called the guy, his longtime manager from South Africa, Ricky Sims, and I was just like. First, I was just emailing. I just kept emailing. Really nice. Just, hey, is there any way? Finally, he agreed to have a Zoom because at that time, he was getting frustrated with the pace of a movie. And then we started talking about the documentary rights, and I was like, oh, I'd love to do it. When you have something coming out that's, hey, I just did this about Miracle, then there's a trust level.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you can run with the rights. So I'm in the middle of putting a director on that, and then
With
you take it
Usain
out.
Bolt?
Try to say Usain Bolt. Yeah.
Wow.
We're about to pitch a story about the '84 Olympics. It's called The Last Amateurs. It's Michael Jordan, that team, Chris Mullin, Ewing. It's when these kids were coming out of college, and like they beat the NBA team. But it was the LA Olympics, so I think we'll set that one up. But I love docs. They're quick. They're quick, and compared to a movie.
This is interesting with Michael. If that happens, then we have Steve Shanwald, who was with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
And we are in touch with the agent of Michael Jordan. He lives in Bethesda, David Falk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're creating a network. That's nice, Joe.
Yeah. I just had a Zoom with Jordan's son, Jeffrey. So, and he was just so happy because he's trying to get in the film business. And it's, again, you just plant these seeds. And then it's like it leads somewhere else, and then it's just about a truck. Because no one, when I reach out to people, if I want to do a movie about them, they don't know anything about the movie business. And like this Macclesfield story that I was telling you about, you just go and pitch and then they're in, they trust you and then you figure out the rest. It doesn't always result in a movie. And I try to be really honest. I never do deals either. I never paper anything. I do a handshake because I'm like, if it's not working out, I'll tell you before, you'll want to leave. If I can make it, I don't do, options. So that's worked out well. Save on attorney fees too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I'll keep go online and see announcements. We're out to cast right now. We'll see.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Sophie. I'm currently a sophomore, undecided business major. You talked a lot about how you're going to get a lot of no's in the industry. And so I'm kind of curious if there's a particular project that you were passionate about, but unfortunately was not able to get to the movie stage because how tough the film industry is, especially in LA.
God, there's so many. What's one that recently, I had a book that got really close at Netflix. It was called Bromance Book Club. And it was about a bunch of kind of athletes and kind of alpha males that would get together in kind of like this secret book club. And they'd read romance novels to understand women better.
Oh, wow.
It was like kind of a sports comedy. And I had actually met with, who's Taylor Swift's fiance, Travis Kelce, and actually talked to his agent because I was like, oh, we want to write a part for him. And so we actually went to Arrowhead and I met Jay. It was with a group of like 6 Hollywood people. And they had just started dating maybe a couple months and went to his house after the game. And he had a great game. And then there's Taylor Swift and we're in the basement of his house,
Wow.
kind of his man cave. But I was trying to get him and we'd written this great part for him. That movie never happened. It was at Netflix and we were like kind of going to be greenlit and then it just all fell apart. They had a change in leadership there and then all the executives got shifted. And I so clearly saw the movie with that and I couldn't get it set up anywhere else. But that was one that, it kind of had this sports kind of adjacent, it's not an inspirational sports story. There was like a little scene in the beginning with sports, but it was just like a funny. So that one always pissed me off, and a lot of others. So a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You made it. I don't know how many Taylor Swift fans are there, but they all got excited.
Yeah. I was, I said that relationship's real. So yeah, she was very nice too.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Pierce. I'm also in the sports management program here. I'm a junior. And I know you mentioned earlier the importance of putting yourself in situations that you're uncomfortable in for growth. Is there a specific moment within your career that stands out with that theme?
I mean, there's challenges, uncomfortable. I mean, I remember when I started in the business and I didn't know anything. And I remember going to a big agency and there was a room full of agents asking questions and what we were working on. And my former partner was kind of paralyzed. So I had to do all the talking. I literally only started for like 6 weeks. I didn't even know what to say. And we had just kind of started working on some things. So I think when you get thrown in those kind of uncomfortable situations, you got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. And if you don't, then you're just going to fail. So I think you got just, lots of moments. I mean, again, you always deal with problems. So there's, uncomfortable moments are dealing with a director that's crazy. I mean, that's not fun because you're in charge of a lot of money and you got to stay on budget and on time. And I really tried to be good with that. And I think most of my movies, and especially the ones that I did at Disney, I would always bring them in on or under budget. And that was always try to be responsible like that, and I always try to be on set from start to finish. So coming out of a garage, I just was like, man, once you get on a movie set, it's like, that's the best feeling in the world. I want to be there and see anything because you're going to catch mistakes and but there's always problems.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mohammed. I'm a junior. So I know you briefly talked about your brother. Can you tell us more about his journey as a finance graduate? And do you guys like complement each other? Like, do you need him in your filming career?
You're talking about my son?
Son.
Oh, your son.
Yeah. Because my brother is also finance.
Yeah.
But No, it's funny because this little I might have been I can't remember who I told earlier, but the Macclesfield story, right, about this little team that beat this big team, huge David and Goliath story. So I got friendly with the guy. Rob Smethurst is the owner of the team, and crazy story how he bought the team. He had sold a business, kind of a blue collar guy, but he sold this app and he'd had some money and he drunkenly bought the team that was in bankruptcy for £400,000, which is like $500,000. Forgot he bought it. Woke up the next day. Someone knocked on the door with a keychain and said, here are the keys to. So this crazy story happens, and it results in the movie I'm trying to happen. But on the finance side, he's trying to raise money to scale the team, and Luke, is finance and about to start his investment banking career. So he's kind of leading the charge on this raise, and just put a deck together for him, and he's going to be talking to some people about it. And if this thing sells or he gets a group that is interested in it, he'll be a part of that deal. So it's fun to see the crossover from finance into what I'm doing, and how this one story obviously is two separate parts. It's the creative journey of the movie, but also helping on the finance side, which I know enough to be dangerous, but listening to my son talk, I was like, holy man, he's a smart kid. He actually knows what he's saying. So yeah, finding, that crossover, because I try to raise money a lot for movies, so I'm kind of in that finance world in that way. And Luke is in media with investment banking. So he's been working on, projects in the media world. So we've kind of crossed over a little bit in careers, and he grew up around the film business, but didn't have any, idea about coming in the film business, but now he's kind of overseeing, and, they have as a client, they have Paramount. So he's touching a lot of different things right now, which is exciting. And it kind of, see this little crossover with what I'm doing. Yeah.
Our finance faculty are very happy.
Yeah.
All the examples have been so far finance. So
yeah.
Pete is up.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, and I'll next. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. So first off, Miracle is my favorite movie of all time. So that was something I didn't know going into this. So that's really exciting for me. And so for my actual question now, I'm actually not a business major. I'm psychology and human development, and I'm a business minor.
Okay.
So this is, I was just wondering how your undergrad, being a marketing major and baseball player, has led to your daily business and career in with interviews and applications, just especially in the current day.
Yep.
And yeah.
Thank you. I watched Miracle at this university. So I lived in Ritchie Coliseum in the back. They would throw all the non-revenue athletes back there. And I remember watching it with everybody on the floor, and it was like taped. So it wasn't live, and there was rumors of who won and who we lost. We won, we lost. But I remember the whole place erupted. So to kind of be in that moment here on campus and watching that, and then doing the movie all those years later was like incredible. I mean, who would have thought that I'd make that movie and then make the documentary and be back with those guys, this past summer in Lake Placid. So that's been awesome. But, for Mark, I've never had a traditional job. I've never worked for anybody. I've worked for myself. So I don't do typical interviews, so, but again, selling and putting yourself in a position. The great thing about being a producer is you don't have to pass a test. You don't have to, there's no guild to get into. You're a producer. Anybody can produce. You have to get your calls answered, and you have to have people that can, that'll trust you and hear you. And, but there was no barrier to entry. So I just started doing it and learned on the job. So it was fun for me. But I'm always, again, in some way selling,
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm a freshman finance and accounting major. First of all, this has nothing to do with my question, but the Bromance Book Club is a really fun book. So disappointed that didn't get turned into a movie. But my question had more to do with, because there's this mindset about starting things later in life or making a big switch later in life. Did you ever have doubts, or even doubts from your family or other people about making such a major career switch in life, and how'd you deal with that?
My parents gave up on me as far as traditional, path, because it's funny when I was trying, my what are you going to do after college? I was like, Mom, I want to play baseball. if that doesn't work out. She was a little bit of, we joke, a dream killer in that way. But no, she was just very rational. And it was just get your degree, you can figure things out. And yeah, I just always did the non-traditional route and knew to get in the film business, I had kind of saved some money and just tried it, did that entrepreneurial thing and figured out if I could do it. And you get motivated when you're spending money and not making it. I can tell you that much. So yeah, they were proud of it, but they kind of were like, knew that I wasn't going the traditional route. And yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can we ask your brother what he felt?
What'd you think?
What?
My path?
Yeah.
Got very traditional. So we are opposites.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's right. You have to be optimistic. So, yeah.
Go ahead and ask him. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Sydney. I'm also with the sports management program. I'm a sophomore here. So I think something that people have told me, very often is it's important to fail and kind of get back up from those failures. So I was wondering if you can think about a time maybe during your career that you failed and how you were able to get back from that.
Yeah, I mean, I fail on a daily basis in the film business, because every idea, you think you're going to get something and then it doesn't happen. So you got to have a volume of things you're working on, and you can't get dejected. I mean, I feel stuff like that for a very short time. I move on, even if it's a huge disappointment, you have to, because most of the time you're going to hear that. So you're like, okay, what are my other options, And you have to have that mindset, or you just, first of all, you won't stay long in the business because there's it just takes so long, because setting something up, and finding a home for it doesn't mean it's going to get made. It's like a two-step thing, in my business. And, we're in the middle of getting this comedy set up at Amazon right now, but it's competitive. So we're trying to, everything is very fluid. You got 20 plates spinning and, just got to try to, I use my phone and have all my alarms of stuff I've got to do each day and reminding me. But yeah, just got to keep grinding and just have that mindset. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a failure. It's just, and there's only so many amount of films that can be made, right? And they have to look at it like what they're looking for, what genre it is, what their P&Ls say, what they think it can make, what the audience is serving. And now everything is so analytically driven because you have data with like Netflix and viewership and retention and how long are they staying on when so they know the genres that are working or types. So now it's a little less of your gut with them, and it's like, these stories typically don't work. Not always, but so you're always fighting that of that's where technology sometimes helps, but also maybe hurts. And it's like I don't do big tent poles, I don't do horror. Those genres sell better than inspirational sports movie, but you can find a place and to do it. And then, it's knowing the executives and what they're looking for. So just got to be persistent, patient, and be able to take no, not personally, and just find something that hits the mark better.
So you brought up a great question. When they use analytics, they can be going by data, but data may not tell the future fully.
Right. Yeah.
So that's because creative things, you can't predict how that thing.
No, you can't. And you can't tell the level of a movie and the quality of it, because that matters too. And when you date it, when it comes out, what it's going against, and so yep.
Go ahead.
My name is Dane. I'm a freshman finance major. Also, I'm from Philly, so Invincible childhood classic. Go Birds. My question was about select films. I wanted to know how your personal workflow from getting a movie from script to screen kind of changed between when you were working with Disney compared to now being the president of your own production company and then collaborating with larger studios like Amazon or Paramount for financing.
That's a good question. So the business has definitely changed. So when I was young and starting in the business, my big goal was to get a production deal, an overall production deal. And I remember pulling out the middle of Variety, and it was like each studio had 80 to 125 deals. So it was real. You could get it. You had to kind of get a movie that people wanted. And it was like, and then I got the deal at Disney after doing the Rookie. And we would just pitch all day long. And if they liked the pitch, they would buy it and get the writer set up, and you'd have something in development and they would pay for it. That is so rare now. a lot of studios have kind of cut down their development unless it's like a real no-brainer and really obvious thing. So a lot of writers are kind of writing scripts now. So a lot of times I'll get a script, develop it further, and then try to package it and then bring it to a studio. So they're doing a lot less development. So, and with Disney, I had one place that I was really serving. And so now what scared me 10 years ago when I started my own company, I left my former partner, is like Netflix and Amazon scared the shit out of me because I was like, I'm at a deal at Disney, kind of a traditional deal, and now this is all like streaming. I don't know that world. I need to prepare myself for that. So I went out and raised money and started my own thing, and that's what led to where I am now. I want to be agnostic. I don't want to be bound to one place. So I want to be able to sell to everybody. But then now it's my company. I have to fund it, and there's more risks there. So you got to look at, again, risk reward on that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's definitely changed.
That makes sense. And then I just have like a cinephile question too, which is there anybody in the industry, like whether it's director or screenwriter, that you haven't had the chance to work with that you really want to make a movie with someday?
Oh man, there's so many great directors. It's always a challenge to, especially in the genre that I work in. It's like people want to see it, but they don't get the sexy directors. You got to kind of get people before they become. If you've looked at all my movies, it's like from John Lee Hancock. He had directed 1 hour of TV. He was a writer. He did The Rookie. He's now A-list guy. Gavin O'Connor. He had done a little movie called Tumbleweeds. You get them,
right?
yeah. And so on and on. And so you got to look and find people that are kind of on this upswing. And but yeah, there's tons of people that I'd love to work with. I'd love to work with John Lee again. I'm trying to find something with him to kind of come full circle. So yeah, a lot of great talented people out there. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. She came first. Let's after her you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. My name is Anaya. I'm currently in my first year of MBA. So you spoke a lot about success and how the road to success is never easy. There are a lot of hurdles that come in. So I just wanted to know what is the best way that you keep yourself motivated every day? Because, no matter which career you're in, we're currently in a very competitive world.
Yeah.
So what is the best way that you kind of like wake up every morning and tell yourself that you can do it?
Yeah. I mean, I love what I do. I'm lucky to be doing it. Even with the challenges and how hard it is to get things made, I love what I do. I wish the business part of it was not what it was. I don't make the final decision. So I'm in the hands of others. You can get a movie really close and then it doesn't happen. And it's really disappointing when you get that close. And then business aspects of it change, how you have to deal with people and, now the analytics and, so there's always things to overcome in that way. But I love what I do. I love the creative part of it. There's nothing better than starting in one place and then ending it up where you're bringing a movie back here and showing it and being really proud of something. I wouldn't trade the films I've done with anybody. I feel like that's, for me, I love all of them, and they're all little, their own little thing, and they're just so difficult to get made, and they have a theme, and maybe not Chappaquiddick. I don't know if you saw that movie, but yeah, not an inspirational movie, but for the most part, the films I've done, been received really well, and I'm really proud of them. But that's what gets me excited, is adding another poster to the wall.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hey, I'm Justin. First of all, thank you for coming here today. I'm part of the sports management program as well.
Yep.
And this is kind of building off some recent questions. I'm huge into data. And we've seen in the last few years movie studios really starting to prioritize movies that will generate revenue. That's why we've kind of seen a lot of sequels, I feel like.
Yeah.
And this is kind of leads me to this question. Have you kind of seen like movie studios try to incentivize maybe a different creative direction that compared to maybe your ideas, where they're kind of trying to want to go in the direction of movies that will try to generate revenue compared to stories you might want to tell?
Yeah. The big movies really support all the other movies. The studios are built on the tent pole, the ones that can really move and make, $1 billion at the box office. They support all the other ones. You really need those. the problem is that a lot of the movies feel the same, a lot of sequels, but it's people's viewing interest as well. I mean, it's hard to get people to go to the theaters now. You're also you're competing with YouTube, you're competing with Instagram. It's people's attention, so less and less people are going to the movies. That's why things are moving over to like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, and you just have to be ahead of where it is that the people will tell you what they want to see. And when you give them a really good original movie like Sinners, like One Battle After Another, or Marty Supreme, they'll go to see it. So you have to kind of find that balance. Like Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi.
Marty Supreme.
Yeah, I love Marty Supreme. Yeah. Did you like it?
Oh, it was my favorite movie last year.
It's great. It was great. I argue with people, but I love that movie. But like Mike DeLuca, who's a friend, I mean, he's like the visionary. He's ran New Line in so many movies. That guy, filmmaker driven. You want to find that balance of the big movies and the smaller, and supporting the smaller movies, and then I got to figure out where my movies are best suited. It's Netflix, Amazon. That's where I'm doing a lot of stuff now. So, but you got to find and figure out what people will see, and convince a studio, because they've it's so data driven, like you said. People will show you what they want, and but you got to balance that with like supporting original films as well as the easy ones, because it's a sequel, but you could burn that out. Look at Marvel's struggling because it just feels like all their stuff is the same, and so IP is a big thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bahar. I'm pursuing my master's in marketing analytics. I recently read an article about the volatility of Hollywood's labor market, specifically that the film and TV industry's employment has dropped by 30%.
Yeah.
So my question is, what's your advice on those of us who want to get into the industry despite the drop?
Yeah. It's a tough time to get in the industry. Yeah. 30%, it feels about right. So you take 30%, maybe less movies, it's going to be 30% less executives. And it trickles down. So there are people leaving the business. I had a good friend that was, a doc director, really, came from NFL Films, worked on tons of big shows. He was struggling so much, he went into finance. I mean, he just at 50 years old moved to finance. So it's not impossible to get a job, but it's a challenge. So you're coming at it, and there's always these dips and flows, that happen. But yeah, I mean, if you got to always follow your dreams. You got to get into the business somehow, usually as an assistant or an intern to start. And, there's agencies, there's management companies, there's studios. So again, I didn't follow that path because I was, again, older and no one's hiring me. But yeah, never get to, if you love something, go do it. They're not going to ever stop making movies. There's always going to be a business. They probably were making too much, and now it's like, let's be more profitable. Studios weren't being profitable. They were making too many things, and now they're looking at profitability, which means you're just going to get rid of some workforce. And I think, I know Paramount got rid of Sony just announced a bunch of big, it's just, they got too big and now they're bringing it. And then it'll kind of even out where they need to be.
Yep. Thank you.
Good luck.
Well, thank you for being here and good seeing you guys again.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yes, thank you. So I know you touched base a little bit about like the challenges that you face while you starting off with your like film company, and for example, like findings and also selling the movies and films. But I also wanted to like know what are some other challenges that you're still facing now, with like everything developing so quick, especially in the industry or in your entrepreneurship like journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's just changing really quickly right now. With technology, with everything, with consolidation, with studios buying each other, there's just going to be less things made. So you have to figure out, okay, what hits a bullseye?
Yeah.
So that's what I stay up, and I've been doing a lot of documentaries now, and you just got to keep busy. And I just love that space. So I just started leaning in, and people coming to me now with things. So just always got to be open and meeting, always be active too. Cause we just did a big round of like, let's go see all the management companies. Yeah. And then you got to go through a bunch of scripts, and then you got to look at, maybe finding one that could work. So yeah, it's just staying aggressive, staying in front of the technology of where it's going, and be resilient. because it changes, and if the change is going to freak you out. It's there's going to be more of it, you know.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah.
So you brought an interesting issue. There's only fixed amount of time in a human being for watching, and now Instagram and TikTok, you're competing against all those things. But how does your industry change with the attention span of many people, like short, 1 minute, 2 minute, including us? We struggle in our school. The classic way of writing articles and distributing, people are not reading that anymore.
Well, these little mini movies are happening. I forgot what they call it. A lot of it's happening in like China and Asia. You know, because it's, in fact, Quibi, this company came out that that raised a bunch of money, and they were trying to do little short Quibi quick bites or something, I think it stands for, but it failed. It was like a little too early. But now people are always on they're used to getting very quick, you know, things and information. So getting people to sit down in a movie or go into a movie for an hour and a half or 2 hours, now they're like 2.5 hours. It'll have to be something they really want to see. So it's attention span. It's realizing that the movie industry is competing with YouTube, you know, for eyeballs, you know, and for now a lot of, you know, people making content are becoming the stars, and, you know, so you're just competing with however much time is in the day for people and what they're going to watch, you know. So it's a challenge, and it's what the studio's looking at, you know, like how much can they make? Because if you're making too much and they're not seeing it, well, then make some less things, but be smarter about the movies you're making, and that's where you're getting this contraction right now. So yeah, it's an issue because box office is going down. You know, some of it gets offset by foreign or price increases, but yeah.
But on the other hand, I didn't watch Instagram until probably last year. I had an account, but inactive. So today, I used to watch Jay Leno before sleeping. So you laugh and you sleep.
Yeah.
It was nice. And then he went away, then everybody got political, so I stopped watching. Today, I've started to go back to Instagram. People are so creative.
Yeah.
That 30 seconds, and you laugh. And I started liking it.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a lot of yucky things too.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other things where general population comes up with creative ways to make you laugh.
Yeah. Yep.
So
it is. If I'm having trouble sleeping, I'll just look at Instagram and see, you know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit addictive. I'm not on it that much, but yeah, you're competing with, you know, getting people interested in something and word of mouth, and but yeah, things change, and then you hope you can kind of come back, and, you know, maybe it moves back to something, you know, viewing habits or what people want, you know. So
are you a big proponent of the laws coming worldwide around under 16, ban on social media?
Probably help. I mean, you know, it's gotten bad, you know, even socializing, and, you know, you're always on this. I mean, it's a convenience and you got to have it. But yeah, when you're at a certain age, I'm not, you know, my kids are now aged out of it, but like there's a lot of pressure that happens from that. And they should be out talking and meeting, and yeah, I don't know. It's hard to mandate something, but I know they're doing it in Australia and other countries where you can't, you know, maybe get on there. There's probably some good things with that.
Before I ask my last question, any of our faculty? Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was thinking about a documentary that I watched a couple of years ago. Oh, thank you. That I really enjoyed. That I think it was an ESPN documentary, and it was about the kind of the huge number of great basketball players that come from Prince George's County, Maryland. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't think I saw it, no.
And so it focused a little bit, not as much as one might think it would, but a little bit on Len Bias.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you've ever considered or come across any University of Maryland stories that you might want to do.
Yeah, you know, Daryl Hill's story, I tried to get set up, and he had someone that did a script, and the script was okay. It didn't quite get there, but he had a great story. He was like the first African-American player in the ACC. The Bias story, unfortunately, is tragic, but who's the other on the O2 team? Who was Cowan? Who's from the national championship team in 03? He was a local kid. Who? Juan Dixon had a great story. And I looked at that a little bit. Yeah, it's hard to, find something that might travel outside of these, again, underdog stories. And there was a doc by a local guy who did the Lenny Bias documentary for 30 for 30. I try to stay away from the tragic stories. I mean, he was amazing, but yeah, but it's hard making a movie. It's hard to figure out what, and I'm biased for this university, but it's like, what would be something that the country, the world would want to see? So you got to be like pretty selective on, what I think. And
so I have two questions. One is almost all of your movies are US centric sports, but the world is very big.
Yeah.
It's 86% of the population is outside the developed world.
Yep.
So have you thought about for the world population? Because these movies will
yeah,
sell.
You're right. Part of the problem with the movies I do, they're mostly domestic driven. So I kind of leave half of the box office on the table,
Or probably more.
Yeah. But, it's this Macclesfield story, it's a soccer story, but, the perception might be that it could just be for a UK audience, but hopefully it's for everybody. Soccer's becoming more popular. So you're always fighting the worst case that someone's going to give you. Well, it's you always hear that. And then you got to kind of shift them back of like, but it's not just about that. It's more of a universal story. It's not, Ted Lasso, if you pitched that story years ago before that, who's watching that? But you make something great, there could be soccer in it. You just can't be everything what it's about. It's got to be about the human story, whether it's funny or heartwarming or inspirational. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You're losing everybody, Prob.
Yeah, the last question is, when do we see you in Oscar?
My Oscar? I thought A Million Miles Away could have had a chance. Amazon didn't support. It got great reviews and great audience. And another, you got to figure out if they're going to support you in that, because it's so few movies that are going to get nominated, and but you never know. Mine are more populist movies. So
have you been to Oscars?
No, I'm only going to go when I can go each year, but it's a long show, man. And anybody who's there is like, if I have a movie there, I'll go. So, yeah.
No, we are running out of time, but thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you, guys.